Well, what is going on, Avalanche Retreat? My name is Brad Tate, and I am going to be your speaker this weekend. Unfortunately, I'm not there now. As you could probably deduce, I did not make it this evening. I had a flight that got canceled. I am stuck somewhere in the middle of America right now, but I promise I will be there tomorrow, all day Sunday. I just won't get in until super late tonight, and so I'm going to miss the session tonight. But once I realized I was going to miss the session, I just thought, you know what, I still have this message, I still have God's word for you, and I wanted to get this word to you all. So it might be a little bit shorter, but I wanted just to kick off this conference right. So I hope you all are ready to have a great time. I hope you're ready for God to speak directly to you. And here's what I would ask. Every time we come into this room, every time we come into this space, you know, for the sessions, and we're going to worship and have fun, and we're going to listen to these sermons, I just encourage you, bring a Bible with you, or maybe bring a Bible app on your phone. I don't know if you're allowed to have phones or not. I didn't see the rule book. So if you're not allowed to have phones, don't do that. But bring a Bible, something you could jot down some notes on, because you're going to get the most out of these messages if you could follow along in that way. But for our time tonight, as we kick this conference off, I just want to just ask you, you know, do you ever feel like you didn't fit in? Like when I grew up in a small town in Indiana. And the town I lived, like, it was like a bunch of, like, you know, there's people who loved hunting deer. It was people who loved country music. And I, you know, and me, I loved playing Call of Duty. And I did not love country music as much. I was more of a rap music kind of guy. And there were times early on in my life, I did not feel like I fit in. I didn't feel like I fit in at school. I didn't really feel like I fit in, like, out in the community. And I just did not find couldn't find my people. You know how that feels? And I'll never forget, I started going to this new high school. I changed schools. I went to this new high school, and I saw this group of students. And it was interesting to me because they didn't look like they fit together at all. Like one of them was, like, you know, kind of like a sporty kind of, you know, jock kind of kid, and one was like you get like intellect, like, you know, carrying books and like a pocket protector, you know, kind of kid. There was like the band kid. There was like an athlete. Like there was just all kinds of different students in this one group, and I'm watching this like, why are these people together? Like none of them seemed like they fit in with each other at all. And what I didn't realize was those students all went to the same youth group. Like they were all part of a same youth group. And here's what I didn't realize, because I wasn't raised in church and I never really saw a youth group at that point. What I did not understand was how powerful an encounter with Jesus is. That when you have an encounter with Jesus, and I have an encounter with Jesus, whatever we have different in life, country music, rap music, whatever, sports, or whatever it is, whatever difference we have, when you have a genuine encounter with Christ, then Christ changes you. Like Jesus changes you, and that change in you, it actually bonds you together with this beautiful community called the church. And I didn't realize the power of that at that time. But now, you know, a few years down the road from that, I see it. I see the beauty of the church. I see the diversity of the church. I see that while no two people are the same, but God melds all of us together, and we all fit in this place called the kingdom of God. And so what I want to do with my time as we kick off tonight, as we kick off the session, is I want to open up a Bible with you. If you have a Bible with you, open up to Luke chapter 19. Luke chapter 19 is where we're going to be. I just want to read this account to you, because this is going to set the stage. Because what happens in Luke 19 is this. There's a person, his name is Zacchaeus, and he doesn't feel like he fits in at all. And we're going to talk about that in a minute. But he has this encounter with Jesus, and I want you to see what happens to him, because I believe what happens to Zacchaeus happens to us today still. I say this all the time whenever I travel and I speak places. I always tell people, the Bible is not just like well, first off, this is not a collection of stories. A lot of times when people talk about the Bible, they're like, let me tell you the story of David and Goliath. Let me tell you the story of Moses in the Exodus. Let me tell you the story of Noah and the flood. Here's what you need to realize. The Chronicles of Narnia is a story, okay? Lord of the Rings is a story. This is a historical account of what God's people have been doing since the beginning of time. This is, and so what I'm going to read to you is this actually took place. No educated scholar denies that there was a man who walked this earth named Jesus, Bar Joseph. He's Jesus, son of Joseph, who they thought he was, you know. So no one denies that. No one denies that Jesus taught with authority. No one even denies that he had some supernatural kind of miraculous things that happened around him. What people deny is if he rose from the dead or not. But you can look through history writings like Pliny the Younger or Pliny the Elder, and they'll say, like, yeah, there was a man in the first century. His name was Jesus. He lived in this area, this Israel area at that time, and he had a following of people who have not stopped following him to this day. That is historical fact. And what I want to do with my time is I want to open up our Bibles. I want to read this fact to you because I want to show you how Jesus interacts with this one outcast, because I believe he still interacts with all of us outcasts in that exact same way. Let's start off. You have your Bible open. Look at Luke chapter 19. We'll pick it up in verse 1. This is what it says. Jesus entered Jericho and was passing through. A man was there named by the name of Zacchaeus. He was a chief tax collector and he was wealthy. Okay, so there's this guy named Zacchaeus, and it says he's a tax collector. Now, you have to understand this for this whole story to make sense. People in the first century hated tax collectors. Absolutely hated tax collector, like more than Nickelback, more than, but they seriously, like, the people did not like tax collectors. And what they did not like about tax collectors were they were viewed as traitors. Because tax collectors, they were collecting taxes for Rome. So they were taking taxes from their community members, from their townspeople, from literally their neighbors, and they were giving that tax to a foreign occupying government named Rome. And so people had a problem with that just from the beginning. And then if that wasn't bad enough, most every tax collector was corrupt. They didn't just take what Rome asked them to take, they would take extra. And they would keep a few dollars for them, and they would pass on the rest to Rome. So Jesus is walking down the road, and there's this man named Zacchaeus, and he's one of these tax collectors. He's one of these people that people just don't like. He is a true outcast. And look what it goes on. It says this. Zacchaeus was trying to see who Jesus was. And so he went, and he was unable to do so because of the crowd. And because Zacchaeus was short in stature. I love this. Zacchaeus wasn't just a tax collector that people didn't like. He was also short. And I don't know if you've ever had that burden. I have been short my whole life. Now, I'm kind of average size now. I'm 5'10". Okay, you can't tell. I have legs. You can't see them, but they're there. But I've been short my whole life. All through high school, I was shorter than all the other guys in my high school. I remember my senior year of high school, I was like, 5'6", 5'5", something like that. And I'm dating this woman who was 6 foot tall. She was like towering over me. It looked more like owner and pet than it did really boyfriend and girlfriend. And so I know what it's like to be short. So here's this short little tax collector, and what he wants is to have an encounter with Jesus. And what I love is that he went after it. Avalanche, can I say this? I'm glad that you're here this weekend. I'm glad that you made time to be here this weekend. For some of you, maybe you just were invited. Maybe you came with a family member or a friend. I'm glad you're here too. Because what you don't even realize is you are intentionally being in a place where you can have an encounter with Jesus. Just the same way Zacchaeus climbed this tree, you registered for this conference to be here, and I'm telling you, just the same way Jesus is going to show up for Zacchaeus, he's going to show up for you as well. Look what it says. It goes on, verse 4. Verse 4 picks up, it says this. So he ran ahead, he climbed a sycamore tree and to see him, since Jesus was coming that way. Verse 5 says, when Jesus reached the spot, he looked up and he said to him, Zacchaeus, come down immediately. I must stay at your house today. And that's the game changer. Zacchaeus just wanted to see Jesus. He had no expectation to talk with him. And there was no way he would have even thought Jesus would have wanted to eat with him in his house. Let me ask you this. For those of you who go to, a school, you go to a public school, or even if you're like a charter school or something like that, who do you sit with at lunch? Do you sit with your mortal enemies at lunch? Do you sit with complete strangers at lunch? Or when you walk into that lunchroom, do you look around and do you try to find a person you know? And do you tend to sit with people you like? You see, even today, it's a big deal to eat with someone. To eat with someone is to kind of say, like, I like you, I want to be around you. In Hebrew culture, that was even more the case. To go into someone's home and to eat with someone, that was like to fully kind of accept them into your life. And the fact that Jesus would eat with a tax collector was something that was unheard of. It was something that people have never, ever seen before, that Jesus would do this in this way. Just last week, my wife and I, we went to this conference, and we were just attending this one. And we were in the breakfast area in the morning, and here we're adults, like we're full on adults, and we went through the line, we got our food, we're like, where do you want to sit? And I looked through the room, and there was this one guy who's like sitting off by himself. I'm like, babe, we got to sit with that guy, he's by himself, we got to make him feel like he's in. And so I sit down with him, and I was like, hi, my name's Brad, we're so excited to sit here. And then I kid you not, he's like, oh, nice to meet you, I'm Paul, I haven't been feeling good at all. And I was like, we sat, the reason he was sitting off by himself was because he was sick, not because he was lonely. But we were already sat down, so I felt like we were stuck. So like, that was the fastest breakfast I ever ate. And I was like, well, see you, Paul, peace, because Paul was not my buddy, and I was trying to get out of there before I got sick, because I knew I wanted to get over to see you all. But yeah, who you sit with, the people you choose to sit with, you tend to sit with people you like. And for me, when I felt uncomfortable with Paul, I wanted to get out of there as fast as possible. What you see with Jesus is he wants to be closer to Zacchaeus. He's not in a rush with him. Jesus fully accepts Zacchaeus as he is. I want you to see that. As an outcast, as a tax collector, Jesus still accepts him. And I'm telling you, Jesus accepts you too. I know that you know your sin. I know that you know your shortcoming. I know that you know your doubt, maybe even in Jesus. And so you might not think that you accept Jesus, but you need to realize Jesus accepts you. And all that you need to do is just want to be around him. Just have that faith to want to be around him. And he's going to say, well then, okay, let's sit down and let's do this. For Zacchaeus, it was climbing a tree. For you, it was coming to this retreat. But either way, the result is the same. You are going to have an encounter with Jesus. And I believe he's going to transform you. I believe he's going to transform something in your life. And I believe it's going to be powerful. Jesus wants to be with you. And the beauty of that is seeing that the people you are around literally do change your life. That's why when you have friends who are toxic, you should really be aware of that. When you have friends that tear other people down, you should really watch out for that. There's that phrase, right? Misery loves company. And we all throw this phrase out there and we say this phrase. But the truth of Scripture is this. In the book of Proverbs chapter 16, verse 29, it says this: wickedness loves company and leads others to sin. See, I love it that you're here this weekend because you are interested in being closer to Jesus. There's a lot of people who they're trying to get closer to sin. They're trying to get closer to chaos. They're trying to get closer to those actions that literally kill the joy in our lives. And so what we have to realize is we get a choice to make. Do we want to get closer to Jesus or further away to Jesus? Do we want to be like Jesus or do we want to be like other people? But I'm telling you, who you spend the time around, that it will dictate your future. When I was growing up, when I was in high school, my mom used to always say, Brad, show me your friends and I'll show you your future. And I hated it when she said that so much. But now that I'm full-on adult, and I see the friends when I was hanging with the party crowd and what they're doing nowadays, and I see the Christian friends I had later on in my life, and I see what they're doing today, it's so true. Show me your friends and I'll show you your future. And so for Jesus, what you see is this connection with Zacchaeus, this time with Zacchaeus, it starts to change who Zacchaeus is. Because an encounter with Jesus is transformative. It goes on, look what it says in verse 8. Verse 8, it says this, after Jesus goes to Zacchaeus' house, he eats with Zacchaeus. Verse 8, it says this: but Zacchaeus stood up and he said to the Lord, look, Lord, here and now I give half of my possessions to the poor, and if I have cheated anybody out of anything, I will pay back 4 times the amount. Zacchaeus was a tax collector. That's what he did. And he was collecting money just to make a profit. But when he met Jesus, he met something that mattered more than money. and it changed who Zacchaeus was. Here's my question for you. What could Jesus change in you? Like coming out of this weekend, what's an attribute about you that maybe you don't even like? What's something that's in you that you say, Jesus, if you could make this less of me, I would love that. If you could make me less angry, less bitter, if you could make me less lustful, less envious, if you can make me less greedy, Jesus, if you could transform me so that I don't do this anymore, I want to be like you. And that's what 2 Corinthians chapter 5, verse 17 says. 2 Corinthians 5:17 tells us, he says that for those of us who are in Christ, we're a new creation. The old is gone, the new is here. Like we are no longer who we were before Jesus. We are something different. He changed us. Now, don't miss this. Jesus loved you. He loves you just as you are. Zacchaeus was still a tax collector when Jesus saw him. He was still a tax collector when Jesus ate with him. But through that time, Zacchaeus wanted to change because he felt the love of Jesus. And here's what you need to realize. Jesus transforms us through his love. I think a lot of times when you come to church, you hear about the rules. You hear about the rules and, don't do this and don't do that and don't say this and don't watch that. And so many people, they build their faith on this foundation of don'ts. And they think Christianity is about abstaining from so many things in this world. Avalanche, that is not what we're doing here. That is not what's happening here. Jesus is not about what not to do as far as to get to heaven. He's like, I have grace for all of these things. You could be the tax collector and I can still love you. You could be broken and I can still love you. He says, but I want to transform you. I'll get you to heaven because of my power. I want to transform you so heaven can get into you now. I want to transform you so you could be a different person now. So for Zacchaeus, he had this greed in him and that made him not fit in with the community, and he was ostracized and he was lonely. But when he met Jesus, first off, Jesus accepted him as he was, but then Jesus transformed him. And then Zacchaeus believed that Jesus loved him. And believing that Jesus loved him, then Zacchaeus said, I want to be more lovable. So I want to be less greedy, and I want to give back this money, and I want to give back these things. And so it is through love that Zacchaeus is changed, not just for eternity, but literally for better relationships, for better community, for a better experience on this planet, for a better life right now. I love what it says in verse 6, because you see it's not forced. Verse 6, it says, we back up just a little bit. It says, so Zacchaeus came down at once and he welcomed him gladly. Like Zacchaeus and Jesus it wasn't hostile. It wasn't like Jesus was like, turn or burn. Like they welcomed each other gladly, and it was this fond moment. And Avalanche, you got to understand this. This is who Jesus is. It says this, so all throughout the Bible, the New Testament, the Old Testament, every passage about Jesus is very consistent about this. I'll give you two of them right now if you're taking notes or you want to talk about them in small group later. One is Romans chapter 5, verse 8. Romans chapter 5, verse 8, it says, but God demonstrates his own love for us like this: while we are still sinners, Christ died for us. Not once we got good, not once we got everything, in line. While we're sinners, while we have doubt, while we don't, while we are sinners, Christ died for us. He loves us. And then, even when we're young Christians, and maybe we mess up, or maybe we backslide since conference last year or something, when we make those mistakes and we know we messed up, I love what the book of Isaiah says about Jesus. Isaiah chapter 42, verse 3, it says this of Jesus. It says, a bruised reed he would not even break, a smoldering wick he would not put out, because in faithfulness he will bring forth justice. When we know we messed up, when we know we did bad, Jesus doesn't want to shame us. He doesn't want to rub our nose in it. If we're bruised, he's not going to break us. If we're barely holding on, he's not going to snuff us out. He is gentle, but he is good, and he wants good for you. And so Jesus, he wants to model that love to you, but then Jesus wants you to feel that love and then internalize that love. And he wants you to be transformed by that love. Look at the way this wraps up verse 9 and 10 for Zacchaeus. Verse 9 and 10, it says this: Jesus said to him, today salvation has come to this house, because this man too is a son of Abraham. For the Son of Man came to seek and to save the lost. And I love that last line there. Jesus comes to seek and to save the lost. Avalanche, I believe Jesus is looking for you. Like, he doesn't just want you to come to him to be saved. I believe he's looking for you. Maybe the person who invited you did so because they felt like, Jesus put it on their heart to invite you. Maybe some of you have been coming to this church for a long time, but Jesus put something on your heart, like you have to be at this conference. But whatever it is, I'm telling you, Jesus is seeking for you. He wants to get closer to you. And when he does that, he wants to transform you. And for Zacchaeus, his physical appearance didn't disqualify him. His accomplishments didn't make him, disqualified, or his job didn't make him disqualified. And even his sin didn't make him disqualified. For Zacchaeus, he met Jesus as he was, and he felt that love of Jesus, and he was transformed. And it changed everything. Avalanche, the question I want you to ponder this week is this: where is Jesus nudging me towards transformation? Because I believe you are more than enough already. I believe it's already in you. The kingdom is already in you. And Jesus just wants to pull that kingdom out. And he wants to transform you. And I love this. I love what it said in that verse, because it's not just like, it says he came to seek and save the lost. To seek and save the lost. And he doesn't just want to save you for eternity. He wants to save you from toxic habits now. He wants to save you from loneliness. He wants to save you from greed. He wants to save you from destruction, how you might destroy your own life. He wants to save you from the hard, painful life that you might put yourself in the path of if you make sins. And he wants to put you on a path of his righteousness. Not because you need to follow rules, because he wants you to enjoy life. Avalanche, you are more than enough. Jesus is all you need. And tomorrow and Sunday, I am excited to be there with you and to introduce you to him more. But that's where we're going to leave it today. That's where we're going to get started today. I'm going to go try to catch this plane. I love you all, and I'll see you in the morning. Peace. I'm out of here.